Actually, Yashwanji asked me to do a PhD from Indian Institute of America, Florida, when he was part of the director team. And he gave me the idea that we should put up something, research something on the resolutions that RSS passes. Not many people are aware that RSS resolution passing is a very elaborate exercise. It's highly democratic exercise, and it basically defines the policy and the work on the field for the coming time when a resolution is passed. It is not just expression of sentiments; it's also expression of action. And the entire process has been defined. People don't know it's a democratic and nominated mix of democratic and ex officio members, and how the entire process takes place. Sometimes it takes hours and days to thrash out a resolution. As Arun Kumarji told in the book release, sometimes the final resolution is very different from what the original resolution started. So with that background, we studied the resolution. I divided them into about 18, 19 topics. And then we zeroed down on the work done by Sangh, the very existence of India, in the sense, the very integrity of Bharat. So those were the topics I chose. So it was Northeast, Jammu Kashmir and Punjab. We chose those topics. Those had serious issues right from the time of independence. And we find that generally we define RSS, especially in Indian discourse, and also due to that the international discourse, only in terms of Hindutva, in terms of fascism, Hindu Rashtra, communalism, etc. But Sangha, being such a huge organization with so many allied and Mitra Sanghatan, that it is not easy to encompass it in just 2-3 issues. It's also important to note that every action of its has an impact on the country and on the society. So with this in mind, I started researching. So it is not just the RSS resolutions. What I did was to find out at the time a resolution happened. First of all, in a particular region, what was Sangha doing when the entire thing started? What was contribution to the society in that particular arena, and how it worked from the beginning. Then I also tried to compare what RSS said in resolution vis-a-vis what the society was thinking at that time at large. When I say society, I mean political leadership, the opinion leaders, the media. So generally it turned out that RSS view may be very contrary to what the common popular discourse was, because we have been brought up in a very strange atmosphere when the original idea of Gandhiji was thrown aside by his very chosen disciple, and we found a very different India from what Gandhiji was looking for or what he was suggesting. And recently I found a letter where he openly admits that I read your book 20 years back, it doesn't make any sense to me. And I think the times have changed, and I don't have time for Panchayat Raj, etc. And the talk of Swaraj or Swatantra that as we talk of, it was not on the mind. So this is the reason we find a lot of ideas which are Sangha kept on expressing, though they were against the so-called mainstream. So for that I have chosen media, I have chosen books, I have chosen even the publications which are typically considered anti-Hindu or anti-Sangha. So you find a very balanced approach to what was happening at the time. And when Sangha passes a resolution, what it does on the field. So whether the words change into action. So that was another aspect where I had to talk to many activists, many Sangha Karyakartas and Swayamsevaks, Pracharaks, and also find the same things written from various sources. And having done that, then what has been the impact over years? How RSS vision has generally proven to be correct. Where RSS has not done what could have been done without stretching itself, I've also criticized those areas. For example, the very idea of resolution simply being sent to media and nobody ever bothering to read it. Very important documents sent to government were never considered by the government because it thought that RSS was some kind of threat to them, or it treated it as an animosity. So wonderful ideas and wonderful intelligence from the ground, which Sangha, because of its work in every aspect of life, could have been used by the government. It was not used at the right time. So things went a little awry in many places. So these are the broad issues that come out of the study. And I have touched upon how RSS in different areas has not just worked in the society, sacrificed its own karyakartas, taken the damage on its own head, whether it's Northeast, whether Punjab or whether Jammu Kashmir, and how it has tried to use its strength and weakness in a particular area to change the narrative and still keep on working. So most ideal example is Northeast, where the church was so dominant and so oppressive that was very difficult to run shakhas. So the work that's was done there also because of the situation of that particular region, what was called Assam at that time, that the Christian church networks, schools, the kind of development support they gave in the sense of financial support, etc., and uprooting the very traditions of those people whom they converted. So Sangha focused on them, started Seva Karya, started educational institutions, started economic independence work for their living, and also revived that strong sense of tribal faiths where they love nature, where they're connected to the earth and the environment in a very integrated manner, and all this helped them slowly build a very strong network and very strong work. So we find that it is over a period of 70 years when entire nation never looked at Northeast as a famous anchor, they said that's a tyranny of distance, so we can't East. But Sangha kept on covering Northeast, and because of this, it brought out how it is integrated with Bharat. It talked of old relations with Bharat, and which was basically the same nation. All these things kept them integrated to Sangha, like exchange of students from Northeast to Maharashtra, from Maharashtra and other parts to Northeast. So when in 2014 the Vikas and the development work started, all this groundwork paid off. So it is not that in 2014 suddenly BJP grew new roots. It is not so. It was the last 70 years of work that kept the society united, waiting for the right opportune moment. And once the work started there in right earnest, the entire atmosphere simply grew, blossomed from what we see today. To to understand the foreign links of the people who are creating trouble in Northeast, to keeping on encouraging the people with indigenous faith, it has become a movement now. It's small yet, but this movement is what church is afraid of. So I have an example of senior karyakartas opening schools in very remote areas, how they worked there, how they were persecuted, they were attacked, kidnapped, even murdered. So all that is also mentioned. So that is the kind of work in Northeast, and very patient, very silent work. And also looking at the long run, you'll find that Guruji, after the Prayag Sammelan of Vishnu Parishad, chose to have the next conference in Northeast, in Assam, where efforts were made to bring all the indigenous faiths together. So the seriousness of Northeast was not lost on Sangha, and every adhikari regularly visits it. Yashwantrao Pathak, like all Maharashtra Pracharaks, has also devoted many years in Northeast because Maharashtra has adopted Northeast. I'll not get into details, there are very interesting stories. And if you go to Punjab now, as we know, partition time, Punjab, Sangha had done huge work and sacrificed hundreds of Swayamsevaks who also lost their lives, their businesses, and sometimes family contacts, etc. But didn't bother about their own work. There are many stories. I know many karyakartas whose parents would scold them even in their old age that you lost everything, you kept everything back in Punjab, never cared about us, etc. But they went on working, and that popularity resulted in finally the ban of Sangha under different excuse, though the resolutions by Congress to ban Sangha had started much earlier. So in Punjab, if you look at it, the problem started with a very partition when Sikhs felt they were not given due importance or due justice. Then issue of language came when the society, when the Arya Samaj said that you should write your mother tongue as Hindi, though they were Punjabis. So some Jansangh leaders also being from Arya Samaj fell for it, but Guruji immediately, when he went to Punjab, he admonished them, saying that Punjabi is your Matrabhasha, Punjabi is your mother tongue, and it has nothing to do with the particular religion. Every regional language is a national language, and that changed the course of Punjab. Unfortunately, if you go to any academic paper, if you try to search anything, you will find that every claim is that Sangh and Jansangh actually supported the Hindi movement, which is not true. So that particular movement, and then Congress refusal to give Punjabi language a due place for long years. When the states are reorganization started in 1953, but Punjab was given full statehood somewhere in 1966, so situation went on simmering. And at that time, Sangh Guruji, who was opposed to linguistic states basically, and stood up firmly even in a place like Maharashtra to challenge this very idea, as he thought it was balkanization idea. But in Punjab, he said if every state has got a linguistic identity, why Punjabi Subha should not be made? It's pure politics. And then that was also made, but wounds were kept. So you find Chandigarh was never decided, a Bohar Fazilka was not decided, so that in a festering wound they could play politics. Then when Akalis came to power, they were continuously disturbed. They were not allowed to work smoothly. Their governance were dropped. But having done that, that is how Anandpur Sahib resolution came up. That is how the divisive elements rose. Then Congress and Akalidas came. And that is when Sangha again stood up to say that Sangha, Sikh and Hindus cannot be separated. I was talking to a Congress leader recently. He said he met some in a seminar a few Pakistani leaders and opinion makers who said actually we were going to take revenge of Bangladesh, and we thought that we would break Punjab, and that is why we put in a lot of effort. But unfortunately, we could not break the bonds between Sikhs and Hindus, and we will try that and we will achieve that. If you find in the new environment, that is now when these elections have been held up, the farmer agitation, etc., we find that effort of Pakistan and Khalistanis who worked for nearly 30, 40 years to create a narrative which tried to separate Sikhs from Hindus. So you find the new generation Sikhs who feel they have no relation with Hindus. But at that time, Sangha worked very hard. In fact, the book is dedicated to Jaykrishan Sharmaji, whom I met in Una when he was physically disabled because of some accident. And he also had somebody at least will not document what has been done by Sangha. So Rashtriya Suraksha Samiti Punjab was formed. For each year he was made secretary. When I was asked, do you know what it means to work for this Sikh Hindu unity and against Khalistanis? He said, goli milegi, that I'll get bullet. So this is the Sangha Karyakarta, whether it's Northeast, whether it's Punjab, whether it's Jammu Kashmir, they are ready to even lay down their lives, and knowing that it will happen, they still work. And he worked very boldly with the whole team. Not only that, Karyakartas, since they were busy with this work, Sangha also deputed 15 pracharaks from different prants of Bharat, right from Tamil Nadu to Bengal to Maharashtra, etc., who worked in Punjab for long years. In fact, there is one pracharak still in Amritsar who was sent at that time. So this very strong sense of taking care of a society and committing everything when it is required was also another quality of Sangha. And that is how the bond could not be broken, as I explained, which frustrated Pakistan's designs. And Punjab slowly came out of it. And the Suraksha Samiti took on morchas to not just around Punjab, but also took a morcha right from Punjab to Delhi. It talked about they met Rashtrapati, Prime Minister, Home Minister, everybody. They canvassed everybody. So this is the commitment which finally saw Punjab come out of the problem, and the stopping of exodus, not allowing this division to happen in society was successful. Jammu Kashmir, most of us know that when this trouble started right in 1931, actually, when Sheikh Abdullah made his Muslim conference. Then in 40s, he again rose in mutiny against Maharaja Hari Singh. He was put in jail. So Nehruji, feeling offended about his being put to jail, tried to come and fight his case. But Maharaja told him, without permit, you cannot come. He was stopped, sent back. And that rankled in him. So when Guruji went to Srinagar and persuaded finally Maharaja Hari Singh to go with Bharat, at that time, Nehru did not allow it to happen because he would not allow anything till Sheikh Abdullah was brought out and given the charge of the state. And when he took charge, several articles 370, etc. came. But during this time, there was an attack on Kashmir. Sangh continuously, Swayamsevaks went to front with the Dogra, then with Indian Army, laying down their lives to lay bridges, to lay airstrips, to retain, take back the arms which are dropped by the army and give Air Force and give it to the army. So this bravery is now recorded in a few books, but not really known to people. And then Article 370 came. Sangha is the only organization which has kept 370 as focus of the trouble in Jammu Kashmir from 1950s. We know Shama Prasad Mukherjee lost life. The biggest agitation apart from Amarnath agitation was against 370. And the narrative was set so in such a way that those people who want total integration were considered communal, and those who wanted separation because they were Muslim majority area, they were considered secular. So the hypocrisy of two-nation theory is exposed here when you do not believe in two-nation theory, you don't believe in state in the name of religion, but when it comes to Kashmir, you make special laws. And Sangh was able to also educate people about Citizenship Act of 1982, which was totally against women, Dalit, refugees. It kept on highlighting the poor position of people from Punjab who ended up in Jammu Kashmir because they could not go to Punjab. They are poor, majority of them scheduled tribe, scheduled caste people, and they were without any roof. They were without any right to education, employment, etc., for 70 years. They had no citizenship right except they could vote for the central elections. In this scenario, Sangh continuously worked for them. It worked for Hindus who were thrown out of Kashmir Valley in 1990. I will not go into details. And it was the first organization and the last organization which went through and continuously canvassing their support for them, working for the relief, canvassing continuously for against Article 370, 35A, which was actually dug out by Jammu Kashmir Study Center inspired by Sangh, which was not even known to very big so-called constitutional experts because it was an annexure. And that was the clause used by Kashmir, Jammu Kashmir politicians to make the Citizenship Act of 1982. Sangh was able to highlight that this particular terrorism, this particular separatism is only in 5 to 6 districts of Jammu Kashmir, in Kashmir Valley out of 22 districts. So, and every other community except Sunnis of the valley were actually worked with Bharat in every war, in every trouble. And slowly we have seen how things have changed. It was able to educate people, canvass with people, and finally was able to abolish. So from an old tired narrative of continuously trying to appease the same Kashmir politicians, finally it was possible for Sangh to bring everybody together and get this problem resolved to the extent that now we can hope to see some end to this 70-year-old legacy of messed up political and social system there. Not an easy task, but I'm sure if many people don't know, there are only 300 Seva Karyas in Jammu Kashmir that are taking place now because of Sangh's approach where it could feel that it could integrate the people and get people along. So Seva Karya is very important there. So we find that those Sangha Karya stopped in Valley, Seva Karya never stopped. And this way Sangh was also able to bring Jammu Kashmir into mainstream. So we find that Sangh's sustained efforts and very principled position on every aspect has finally resulted in many issues being resolved. And of course, we know about Ram Mandir, we know about Samarastha Manch, which works on the division of OBC, scheduled caste, scheduled tribe, mandal politics, and works very hard, not an easy task. And so many other issues that Sangha has tackled over years. And we will see that the patience and of the organization, commitment of the people, and commitment of the leadership to walk the talk, as people put it, has seen that Bharat has been able to fight divisive forces with sustained efforts and also with the support from people and Swayamsevaks. Because every resolution at the end says, appeals to Swayamsevaks to work for a particular cause, then it appeals to the citizens of Bharat to work in this direction. So that appeal was not a hollow appeal, but actually meant action on the ground. Unfortunately, most of us not aware of this, and even academia doesn't know or talk about it. And that is the effort of this book, to bring out these elements of Sangha, which basically could help resolve conflicts, where it shows that role of an NGO or voluntary organizations can be much bigger than just creating ruckus around human rights and creating trouble with the government. It could criticize the government, it could criticize the political parties, including Congress, BJP, anybody. At the same time, it worked constructively with the government, right from, if you see, 1947, 1962 war, 65 war, and try to resolve the problem. So if society comes together, if Samaj comes together, the problems that threaten a nation can be resolved much better. That is a lesson from all this. I hope such issues are picked up by people to write more research papers. This entire spectrum of Sangha work, every aspect can have hundreds of PhD, and I'm sure that with people like Dr. Yashwant Pathak and Vedji, more people will join, more people will research, and will have more PhD and more books on the topic. Dhanyavad.